Dear shogi fans, big news from Japan. Souta Fujii finally also claimed the Meijin title. He is now a 7 title holder. Great achievement. Congratulations to Souta Fujii. Conquering the Meijin title is particularly difficult for young players because you have to qualify via different leagues. And every year you can just be promoted to the next higher league. So it takes quite some time until you actually reach the highest league. And only then, if you become first in the highest league, you can challenge the current Meijin. So it's really a long time until you earn the right to challenge the Meijin title holder, who then is of course also a very, very strong player, in this case Akira Watanabe. So Fujii at the age of 20 is now the youngest player to have claimed the Meijin title because, as I said, it takes a long time until you can even challenge for the Meijin title. We will take a look at game 4 from their title match. Fujii in the end managed to win the match with a score of 4-1. And we will see game 4 where Fujii played with sente and opened the game with a move pawn to f. So I will skip the opening phase a little bit. They are just playing kind of normal opening moves. And we reach a position where Fujii now potentially aims to go for a climbing silver to attack on the second file. Whereas Watanabe also just forms a castle, keeps his king in the middle for the moment. And yeah, we see that Fujii forms a kind of a Mino castle, but he keeps also the king in the middle. He keeps the king flexible. I think the reason is that he already kind of anticipated that there might be an attack on the 8th file in this structure. So unlike what we might have seen in Hidechi videos, you don't bring the king over so early in this kind of position in professional shogi, because that might lose time, and here the king is quite flexible. It can either run to that side, but can also run to the other side. Now, Watanabe goes for a very, very direct approach in this game. He goes for a full-on attack on the 8th and 9th file. This move is, according to the computer, a slight inaccuracy. Computer would like to bring the silver to keep potentially their position a bit more flexible. But I think it's also quite interesting because it's a very direct way of attacking. Fujii counters that with this pawn push on his own. And now goes for this, Watanabe goes for this attack on the 8th file. So Fujii takes. It's not really possible to take back anymore now that you have retreated the bishop, because then you run into this double attack. So instead, Watanabe goes for an edge attack and then attacks on the 8th file. So edge attack now with this move pawn to 9e, takes, and now also kind of a typical motive, you deflect the piece here on 7g, and then you go for the attack on the 8th file. Bishop runs, and now attack on the 8th file. Fujii just takes. And now there comes the lance attack. So let's see that. Takes. Now pawn drop. And here potentially, I think this pawn drop by Watanabe might have been a slight mistake. So computer says might be also quite an interesting idea to just take. Within the typical idea, if you take back, that now you can either attack via the 8th file, you can drop a pawn, threaten to drop a pawn, or to take the lance, which leads also to very chaotic positions. Now at this point, Fujii is slightly up in material, but this attack is also not so easy to parry. So instead, Watanabe goes for an even more direct approach, dropping this pawn, and Fujii plays this very nice move, a knight move to 7g. Now, knights are exchanged, and at first glance I thought, okay, can't you just promote now and get this nice token? But in fact, this token is not really doing anything, because you can just take, and for instance, in such a position, you can go for a lance drop, let's say here, and the rook is out of game, the token is not doing anything, and the castle is super safe, and Fujii would just be completely winning. So not a good idea to do this promotion here. Instead, Watanabe goes for an attacking move, the move with a knight drop to 6e. And after takes, he now takes with the bishop. And according to the computer prefers to take here with the lance. Again, similar motives as before. After you take back, there is this rook move. You threaten to attack the lance. You potentially threaten a pawn drop here because the silver cannot really go here due to the knight. So probably this was already quite a substantial mistake not to go for this move lance takes a pawn, but instead to go for this bishop takes pawn on 8f. So yeah, let's see the move bishop takes 8f. Fujii runs, and now the bishop retreats. And yes, the bishop is slightly more active now on 5c, but you have taken 2 moves to play that. So it's just this little waste of time that Fujii probably did here, which in the end, at such a super high level game, might already prove to be too much. Fujii made sure that this rook is not joining the attack now, which might have been the case after lance takes, because now after takes there is another pawn drop. Fujii has enough pawns in hand to actually make sure that the rook has to leave his position. Yeah, now there's a direct counterattack. That's some tactical details. I will not go into the lines when you take, but Fujii can afford to just take this pawn and now to just retreat with the king. And the main problem that Watanabe has now is that he has no pieces in hand. I mean, he has a very nice attacking position. He has this bishop, which defends here. He has this knight, which defends this point. And if he had something to drop here, I think he might have a very, very strong attack. But the problem is he doesn't. And it's really not easy to generate these pieces in this position. So he kind of runs out of material at this point, and this proves to be too much to keep the game. It's, in my view, a little bit strange for shogi that you run out of material, because you always can get new material, but this is one of the rare cases where I think exactly that happened. So now Fujii took, and yeah, Watanabe started this attack. What is the idea of this move? Well, if you think, like I as an amateur would think, yeah, let's just take the pawn, let's not give him any counter chances by exchanging material, then actually the rook would rejoin the game, and now it gets a completely different ball game because the rook is quite a strong attacking piece, and suddenly Watanabe would be back in the game. However, Fujii now calculates very, very accurately with the fact that he gives up his bishop, which I think, I mean, in principle, as I said before, Watanabe doesn't have much material, so in principle it's probably not in his interest to exchange too much material, but he calculates that giving up this bishop is actually not so bad. Yeah, Watanabe doesn't have anything direct, also has to parry a potential threat of a bishop drop here on 7c. So what he does is he runs with the king to go out of this double attack. And now, yeah, Watanabe just runs with the pawn. Quite interesting move. On the one hand, it protects this pawn on 8d because of this very nice bishop drop, which is now a check. And on the other hand, this move threatens the promotion of the pawn, which would then completely kill this rook. So therefore, after the pawn move, in this position, Watanabe decided to drop a bishop to 5c. Very classy multi-purpose move. On the one hand here, he prepares after this promotion to take back, and now this bishop drop here is no longer an option because the square is protected by the bishop. On the other hand, he also prepares to this pawn push, which simultaneously attacks the silver and the rook. So very, very, very cool move. Fujii drops his bishop, which kind of strengthens his castle a little bit. But yeah, this move seems not to work. At least I thought so at first glance, because of this pawn push. So at this point, Fujii must have calculated basically the rest of the game. So bishop drop, and now this pawn push, and either he loses a silver or he loses his rook. Fujii decides it's time to give up the rook, because Watanabe's problem in this position is he has just one piece He just has this rook in hand, nothing else, no, not even a pawn. And only with the rook in hand, he really cannot generate enough attack. Yeah, none of these pieces is joining the attack in any meaningful way. So Watanabe, of course, still tried with a logical move, dropping the rook to 2h. But Fujii now played a very, very classy move. This move, bishop drop to 7e with check. And after that move, Watanabe resigned. So why did he play this move? Looks very strange, does not attack anything directly. Well, the reason is actually very, very subtle. If you go for the pawn promotion here, then actually Watanabe could get some counterplay by just taking and giving up the rook. And if you now, for instance, drop the bishop with a check to reinforce the castle, then you always have the silver drop here against the bishop check. And if you don't do that, Watanabe actually threatens to take the bishop to generate a lot of counterplay against the king. So in chess we would say very classic prophylactic move. This move is actually the idea that at this point you cannot yet drop the silver here, so you will have to lose a move on something like a gold here. And now, after let's say promotion, now you really have a big problem, because if you now take the silver, you're just way too slow. Yeah, so I mean you can probably take the rook. Yeah, if you now take the bishop, you can just take back with the bishop. Yeah, and otherwise you're just way too slow, so there is a threat of bishop takes gold already with a rook drop here, which follows, and Watanabe is just completely lost. So extremely, extremely nice last move of this game. A defensive move in shogi which finishes the game. It's very rare that you see that, at least from my experience. Here Watanabe resigned. Of course, at an amateur level, you would continue and try to create some chances. But at this level, I think he saw that the pawn promotion is coming, and then he's going to lose the rook, or a very, very strong attack against his king will come. And he really has nothing to create any chances. Yeah, it will take him one move to take, another move, a third move, while he's almost already in a threat mate. So from that point of view, understandable at this super high level that Watanabe resigned. Yeah, I think this was a very, very good game by Fujii, almost a flawless game. Watanabe made some inaccuracies in this attack against the king, but of course Fujii defended this in a very brilliant way. Let me say that I also had the chance to look at one of the other games, the game which Watanabe won, and this was a very messy endgame, there actually even the greatest player of these days, Fujii, made a mistake, so he is definitely human, yeah, it takes a lot to beat him. So you have to play a long game, not make any inaccuracies to get an early disadvantage, and to then try to somehow get him in the end. But of course, so far, no one has managed to do that over an entire match of up to 7 games. So yeah, I'm excited to see if there is some challenger to Fujii in the near future, or whether he will claim all titles and hold them for a long time. Thanks a lot for watching, and see you next time.